Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is a CZ P10F OR. That name is a mouthful. The F is for full size and the OR is for optics ready. It's CZ's entry into modular OEM mounting options for optics, which means it comes from the factory ready to mount optics to it. Previously, you could get optics options from CZ's Pro Shop, but this is the first that I'm aware of direct to the customer option for optics mounting. So just in the same vein as like the Core or the MOS, now CZ has a pistol that you can pick up, and it's going to have adapter plates available for your popular optics that you'd want to put, because RDS handguns are where it's at. As far as features go, the P10F OR is pretty well equipped. Hopefully it's not really a pun. With features that some people actually have to pay money for or send their gun off and have done in the past. You've got front and rear cocking serrations. It comes with a forward night sight blacked out rear, which is actually a pretty good combination. However, they're not suppressor height, which I found a little questionable considering the handgun is intended for optics use. You don't have to use it with optics. I shot it quite a bit during the 2,000 round review process without an optic mounted on it, just to get a general feel for the gun, and it is a large one. This is a full-size offering from CZ, and I found it to be significant, well, I wouldn't say significantly, but noticeably larger than my general Glock 17, or as far as grip size concerned, 19X or Glock 45 that I spent a lot of time shooting. One thing that I did find a little troublesome about the offering is it's an uncrowned barrel, especially since the barrel does protrude somewhat significantly from the slide. I would like to have seen a crowned option, kind of a buffer for potential impacts that can occur over time. But other features, the trigger itself, well, just speaking specifically about the trigger, was probably my favorite part of the firearm going into the review process. It's a very clean, very easy trigger to get used to. It's not a hinge trigger, which I have love-hate relationships with, and it's not Glockish in its extreme radius from the pull to the break to the reset. It's just a very intuitive trigger, at least for me, for the size of the gun in relation to the size of my hands. Other features, ambi slide release, which I found to be very intuitive. Being primarily a left-handed shooter, I'm a little bit more critical of ambi controls than maybe a right-handed shooter would be. And even though I still tend to do most of my manipulations with my primary hand versus using my thumb on the other side of the gun if it has an ambi control, I do work it both ways during the review process, just because some left-handed shooters really like that thumb release versus using their digital tip of their index finger. And I found that release to be out of the way when I didn't need it, but right exactly where I wanted it to be when I was going to close the slide with the slide release. Magazine release is reversible, which I would prefer over ambi all the time, especially on some guns. Ambi releases tend to press into the other side of the grip, which can prevent you from being able to release that magazine. So the fact that it's reversible and not from the factory ambi, I think is an awesome feature. As far as grip texture goes, I would like to see it a little bit more aggressive, but it's still a very sure grip on the firearm. And they also have a friction panel up there for thumb support during your two-handed grip. If you want to press in, press down for additional muzzle control, you're going to have that option with this frame. The frame is roughly the same width as the slide, so I don't have as much lip on it as I would like I've seen from Glocks and some from other guns. And usually polymer frame guns, the frame is somewhat noticeably wider than the slide, so you do have that ridge that you can work and use during your two-handed shooting if you want to. But that's not something I got on this gun. It's not really a huge concern of mine, but it was definitely noticeable, and it's something worth mentioning for people who like to be able to stipple or machine in a ledge there for thumb support to help with muzzle control. As I mentioned, and if you aren't already aware, it's a 2,000 round review process. One of the very first things I'm going to do is a 500 round burn down, which is 500 rounds through the gun as fast as possible to see if an accelerated rate of fire would cause any significant issues that you might not otherwise notice with regular shooting at your leisure. Or maybe, you know, you go to the range and only fire 5 or 100 rounds at 500 or 50 or 100 rounds at a time. You wouldn't necessarily notice a problem that could develop with that accelerated life cycle, or rate of fire, I should say. So without any further ado, here is your burn down. Specifically talking about the optics shoe that's built into this gun, because it's an optics ready platform. So what sets the CZ system apart from, say, an M&P or a Glock or something like that? Well, first things first, one of my biggest things I like is it's a very deep well. You've got a very deep shoe for the mounting of optics. And then using an aluminum plate, the plate that I got is from CZ's Pro Shop, it allowed for a reasonable height. It doesn't sit as deep as I think it could. If they went to a steel plate, they could probably get the optic a little bit lower, but even with an aluminum plate, aluminum's still gonna be better, in my opinion, than MIM or cast metal like you see with some of the other optics ready guns out there. Those cast metal plates are very cheap to produce, and they're very cheap, which means they can break or bend or flex in ways that you don't want to have happen on an optic platform, because the way you're aiming is mounted to that plate. The plate gives us our modularity so we can change optics, and that's great, and that keeps us from having to marry ourselves to one particular footprint. But if the optics platform isn't very good, then it's not really worth the time. Another cool feature of the CZ's platform is the fact that the plate interfaces with the slide, and it gives you a cruciform, if you will, of rigidity and recoil support. I've got lateral and linear, forward, sideways indexing points when the slide mates to, or I should say when the plate mates to the slide, and then the optic mates to the plate. Screw wells are very deep. The plate comes with pretty generous recoil lugs for the optic body itself. That being said, does it hold up to hard use? And that's a question that people are going to have, because you know my testing process, I try to be as objective as possible, but I also want to make sure things can handle the bumps and bruises that can occur in the life cycle or lifespan of whatever we're happen to be talking about. In this case, we're talking specifically about the firearm. So my testing, even though I'm going to be working off the optic, I went with a known durable optic, which is a Trijicon RMR. I've been using these for a long time. I have a very high round count on quite a few of them. And if you check out other videos I've done, you can see that the RMR can handle the abuse of hard use to an almost unrealistic level of reliability. So for this review process, just like I've done with other guns in the past, I'm going to use the pistol just like I would be testing the optic, which means one-handed manipulations or something's going to occur, because that's something shooters are going to do, and drop testing. I worked a lot of one-handed manipulations on the P10F OR, and I did not affect the zero of the RMR in any meaningful way. Also did repeated drop tests, same number of drop tests as I would do during a normal optic review, which is, you know, 1 every 500 rounds-ish. So in a 2,000 round review process, you're getting 4 significant drops from shoulder height. None of those affect the zero on the gun. Showing you the first zero I shot right after I zeroed, confirmed zero, fired another 5-round group for video purposes, and then the final 5-round group I fired after this review process was complete. Not only is the CZ P10F OR a very accurate gun, but the mounting system itself did not allow the gun to drift out of zero with the optic that I chose to use. The only real complaint I have is the fact that it does not come with suppressor height sights. I personally don't care if I have iron sights on a red dot gun until I need them, which means suppressor height, there's no reason to take them off the gun, even though red dots are getting way more reliable, and it could be argued that they're as reliable, if not more reliable, depending on the circumstances, than your iron sights. A drop that's going to break an optic is probably also going to shear your front sight post off, depending on the gun. Some are a little bit more fragile than others. But the iron sight should be on the gun. If you're going to sell a firearm that comes from the factory ready for optics, most people are going to buy it ready for optics because they sell a version that isn't optics ready. So I would like the gun to come ready for iron sights to be used through the glass in the event that I need them. And of course, aftermarket for CZ is there, but it's, you know, it's not on the same level as you're going to see, like, for instance, for Glock. CZ is one of those strange brands to me that I don't see them very often. And until I actually spent 2,000 rounds with this gun, I didn't understand why. I still don't get it, actually. It's even worse and even more confusing now. I'd fired CZs in the past. Students come through classes, they have them. I want to check them out. I shoot them, you know, from the Shadow to, you know, the P09 and of course the P10. these are really good guns, and I can't actually now, especially now, grasp why they're not more popular than they are. Of course, a joke I've always had is when I see someone with a CZ, I'm like, oh, a Saab owner, a Saab driver. It's a very cliquish group of people in regards to what their chosen firearm is. And now I get it. I understand why. And I think that it would be awesome if support and popularity of these guns was higher than it is. Question that somebody brought up, and this is something I haven't ever really encountered that I can aware of. I'm not personally aware of any United States law enforcement agency that uses this as a duty gun, and I don't understand why. If I was looking and I was making decisions for an optics platform for duty use, the CZ would be high on the list of guns to look at. The platform has legs, which means it can evolve. The plates can get better, even though the aluminum plate is already awesome. I would like to see steel as an option because, like I said, it allows it to be thinner. It does give this troublesome little gap there. I personally don't care about that. Somebody's going to. They've got a lot of room to work with here, so in the future, as optics maybe get a little bit longer or maybe a little bit wider, they've got enough room to play with that the P10F OR is going to be around for the foreseeable future with mounting options for whatever optics happen to be coming next. It's accurate. It has a very high capacity. You've got magazine options that are out there. You've got extension options that are in existence. Holster options aren't as far as, especially for retention holsters, are not as prevalent as you're going to get from some other brands, but there are options out there. So if you're looking for an optics platform and you like CZ, there's no reason not to get this gun. If you've been CZ curious, the P10F OR, especially if you're okay with a full-size gun, the P10F OR is definitely the gun to get. I'm pleasantly surprised, going into this very objective, but I'm pleasantly surprised with just how much I ended up liking this gun. And for you CZ guys, I get it now. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly. Hey guys, just real quick, I wanted to let you know this was the first Patreon supported review that I've done. As you know, I am not a YouTube channel, but I have a YouTube channel. My primary reason for starting YouTube was to get information out there and provide feedback on things that I liked. 99% of the things I review, I buy myself. I don't accept a lot of products from companies free to do reviews on. Occasionally I do, depending on what the thing is. That being said, those companies understand that they're not going to get any special treatment just because they provided the product. I have never monetized my channel, never will monetize my channel, especially these days in YouTube. Monetization for firearms related channels is kind of a thing of the past. But people wanted me to review things that I didn't necessarily have any interest or time to get involved with. And the CZ P10F OR was one of those things. So I started Patreon so you could support the reviews and get a say in which reviews that I do in the future. I am never going to be primarily a YouTube channel only. My full-time job is traveling the country year-round teaching courses. However, I do enjoy experiencing new things, and I do enjoy doing review processes and giving you guys that information that you've come to know and trust. So if you're interested in supporting future reviews and you want to get a say in what actually gets looked at, if there's something you're just dying for me to check out, you can get a vote and check out the Sage Dynamics Patreon. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Once again, train accordingly.